No. Ah, it's too edgy! So last night I was starting up my Saturday Twitch stream when I was spoiled by a thumbnail for the promotional video of the upcoming Kamen Rider, Zeztz. And I gotta say, I'm a little underwhelmed by what we got here. Before moving on any further, if you're new to the channel, hello, I am Zio Agito, Toku reviewer that typically focuses on Rider and Sentai, but does weekly Twitch streams checking out the latest episodes of the shows and Saturday streams taking a look at the past. I tend to be critical on shows depending on how they present themselves on the offset and the mood that they go by. And I'm also willing to take on spirited debates in my Discord server regarding these shows. Now, of course, links to both Twitch and Discord are in the description of all of my videos. So Zeztz, our first show to actually have an international airing outside of its actual country? That seems like a net positive. But I feel that I understand why, and I mean, if you just look at the visuals. Yeah, this looks like a modern American-made production. The suit looks like something out of the CW-verse shows, like Flash and Arrow. Gone are the armored heroes, and in comes the complex mesh fabric work. Except for this shot. This must be like their action far away suit, and not the one that they wanted to zoom in on. The design itself looks like something generative AI would produce when feeding the concept to it. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but in the past, I've messed around to see what kind of things AI would produce if I try feeding it what my idea of a Kamen Rider would look like, and I've ended up with similar results. But then there's the tone of the teaser in general, which looks like something like a Netflix Marvel show, which, you know, all in all, seems like a good thing, right? But it's odd considering that yes, Kamen Rider is generally a kids show in Japan with a focus on selling toys. And Toei themselves tend to be reactionary when parents deem a show too dark. All of this is not present here. Like, if you were to tell me that this was an Amazon Prime Rider show like Amazon's and Black Sun, sure, I'd buy that. But a regular Sunday superhero time block show? Hell no! The belt being on the chest, that toyetically just... it's gonna be weird, especially for those of us adults who partake in the collectibles. The tone presented is dark and mysterious, which parents typically aren't that big of a fan of, well, at least in Japan. And once again, looking back at the suit, as a cosplayer myself, it looks like something that would be a little bit difficult to try and pull off the right way in terms of being cosplay accurate. I'm gonna see a lot of cheaply made suits of this, aren't I? Sure, we have the light-ups, and I do love me some light-ups. But without the belt, where the belt would be, it's kind of odd. This is something I could have seen them experimenting with in the reining in of the next Reiwa decade. But we're still not done with this current decade of Reiwa. So wedged where it is, it just feels a little out of place. Cause technically, the same vibe that it's given is giving me similar to when they first promoted Kamen Rider 01, which was supposed to be the start of Reiwa and set the tone for how the shows were going to be for that decade. But then, well, we've seen how this decade's going, and they ain't following in that flavor. This does feel like a natural evolution of it, but once again, when you put in all of those stepchildren in the lead up to it, it feels a little out of place. Like if this was the 10th show or the 11th show, would make a little bit more sense. Now, of course, the rumors, and speaking of 01, the ongoing rumors is that the show is going to be helmed by Yuya Takahashi, which, if you follow the formula, he does have a 2-season break before coming back for a mainline. But that's just speculation. Since this seems to be a break in tradition in what appears to be a bid to appeal to a Western audience that I would argue is a bit burnt out on superhero flicks for subversion of expectations, I am indeed conflicted. This is probably the most conflicted I've ever seen when it came to a reveal. Like, this could be the palate cleanse that we need after the appeal of most superhero things here in the States have just fallen flat. But if this falls to the beat of Toei's usual reactionary measures, then this show will have the missteps and changes to address things, and thus end up getting a muddy tail end. If it was me and I was in the Toei boardroom, I'd try to get these shows produced well in advance before airing, like 100% complete before airing, because this would allow you to rework certain narrative pieces that are introduced later on to the story and rework them if it was something that literally came out later on in the writer's room, and also to have proper focus testing between the people and personnel themselves to make sure that they are satisfied with the product before they go ahead and put it out. This would also allow studios to not really meddle in terms of the production of the show in itself based off the audience feedback, because technically that's what focus testing would be for. Now, that could indeed be the case of what's going on here, but without proper confirmation, I have no idea. But it could explain why they are so confident in terms of releasing this to an international audience. Now we have the theming of dreams. Very Inception-esque, especially since we are in the 15th anniversary of that same film. Which, I wonder if the dreams themselves will reflect on whatever form changes we have with this writer going forward. All in all, if this was a show that came out in the mid-2000s when everything was max edgy, myself included, I'd probably be hyped beyond belief. But further understanding of this industry and the fact that big companies that are creatively bankrupt are resorting to things like AI to create their works, it's hard for me not to think that something like that wouldn't be at play here. But we'll know more once we have their presser. But yeah, those are my quick thoughts on Zeztz. I'm in the middle of also filming the Gozuja video, so before people start asking, yes, I'm currently also working on that. But I'm curious to know what's y'all's thoughts as we discuss further on Friday night's live stream here on YouTube. That's it for me. Until next time, bye.